What's up, you guys? Adam here with Anabolic Climbing, and today we're going to talk about the fact that your Anavar probably sucks. So, if you are fascinated by Anavar like most people on this channel are, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let's hop into it. So, we're going back to the high ground checkpoint that we mentioned on our undergrad lab review. And this time, I just want to focus specifically on Anavar because that's what most rock climbers are going to be using outside of test and mast. And of the 23 samples that were basically looked at from the better part of the last year, all 23 samples were not pharma grade. Now, what does that mean? Basically, pharmaceutical grade is basically not getting pure, but within 10% of pure compounds. So how close was everything that was looked at? Well, everything was underdosed. There was no overdosed Anavar at all that I could find in the 23 samples from the Australian tests. So there were about 2 samples within about 15%, which isn't pharma grade, but like you're basically there. 30% underdosed, we were looking at about 9 samples. 6 samples were within the 50% underdosed. Then we had 3 that were within about 90 to 95% off, or like over 70%. I had 1 that was 70% underdosed, 1 that was 90, and 1 that was 95% underdosed. And that 95% underdosed, if you remember, is the Rheinzoll pharmaceutical. That is the German impersonating lab that you will see floating around North America. That's here. So if you run into that, I'm not saying all of that is underdosed, but certainly in the past they've had some underdosed Anavar, which is really disappointing because their test prop is pretty solid. And of course, to all the ladies out there, I want to say be careful whenever running Anavar, because even though you could hypothetically run it at 2.5 milligrams per day for 4-ish weeks, there is a possibility that you could be taking oral testosterone or episterone, Winstrol, or Cialis, one of which is fine. If you're running Cialis as a lady, that's a decent time. But I say all of that to say that you guys have to be mindful of what happens when you play the underground lab game. If you're a dude and you end up getting Winnie instead of Anavar, you'll be all right. Same with like the oral testosterone. That's not a big deal. And I take Cialis anyway. It's definitely one of my favorite ways to both drive endurance and just drive pumps. It's also great if you happen to have a wife, good times. Or dude, whatever you're into. No judgment here. But I say all of that to say that a lot of the underground lab stuff is certainly less than ideal when it comes to purity. And by the way, that doesn't mean that they cannot get the raw materials. I believe on one of them, they actually checked the raw powder of the Anavar that was submitted, and it was 97% pure. So if that's the case, it's not like it's impossible to track down the raw materials. And if you can source the raw Anavar materials yourself and mix it, that might be the better choice for you. But for the most part, if you are buying some underground lab Anavar, there is a high probability that it's going to be underdosed. Obviously, that's going to vary based off of your source. As always, I encourage all of you guys to check to make sure that you're taking what you think you're taking. But yeah, for the most part, I would certainly say that in the event that you are trying to get a hold of some Anavar from underground labs, which if you're watching this channel, particularly on my Trying Anavar video, I had probably at least 20 or 30 people be like, hey, can you give me your source for Anavar? Can you give me your source for Anavar? No, dude, I don't sell drugs. Even though I know where they live, I promise you, I will not divulge my sources, and I'm not going to tell you where you could buy Anavar via the YouTube comments. Ugh, good times. Anyways, if you guys like this brief overview of what's going on in Australia and how underdosed everything is, please like and subscribe and comment on all of that. Really helps the channel. I obviously am going to say that you're better off going toward folks that work with bodybuilders directly. If there are guys that are getting stuff, so for example, if you're getting stuff from similar guys that are doing shows that are producing like high quality competitors, you're probably a little bit better off. Obviously, you're best off with getting something from a pharmacy if you can afford that, or if you can get your doctor to prescribe that. But yeah, definitely a dice roll. Anyways, appreciate you guys as always. This is Adam with Anabolic Climbing, our favorite mad scientist in the climbing community and the general of chemical warfare. Giving you a front double on the way out, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.